It was just after sunrise when the rescue station began to wake up. The air was still cool, and the land around the station was quiet except for birds calling in the distance. Most mornings were the same. Staff checked fences, prepared food for injured animals, and reviewed the day's tasks. Nothing suggested that this morning would be any different. Then someone noticed movement near the dirt road leading to the main gate. At first, it looked like a shadow passing between the tall grass. A few seconds later, the shape became clearer. A lioness stepped into view. Everyone froze. She was large, healthy, and very real. Her golden body moved slowly, with no sign of fear or anger. What caught everyone's attention was her mouth. Gently held between her jaws was a tiny lion cub. The cub's body hung limp, its legs barely moving. The station had seen many wild animals before, but never like this. A lioness normally avoids people at all costs. Seeing one walk straight toward a human building made no sense. Seeing her carry a cub made it even harder to understand. The lioness stopped a few steps from the closed door. She did not growl. She did not roar. She simply stood there, breathing steadily, eyes fixed on the building. The cub made a faint sound, so weak it was almost lost in the morning. Aired out inside, the rescuers whispered to each other. Some thought it might be a trap. Others feared she would attack if the door opened. No one had training for a moment like this. Their hearts were pounding, and time felt slowed out. Then something even stranger happened. The lioness lowered her head and placed the cub gently on the ground, right in front of the door. She stepped back and sat down. Her tail moved slowly behind her. She did not leave. She did not threaten. She waited. It was clear now that this was not an accident. The lioness had come here on purpose. From behind the door, the rescuers could see the cub clearly. Its breathing was shallow. One eye was closed, and its body looked thin and tired. Anyone who had worked with animals could see that the cub would not survive long without help. The lioness lifted her head and let out a low, soft sound. It was not a roar. It sounded more like a call, not to scare, not to warn. It sounded like a request. In that moment, fear mixed with something else, respect, shock, and a deep sense that they were witnessing something rare. A wild mother had made a choice no one expected. She had crossed into human space, risking everything for one reason only. To save her child. No one moved yet. The door stayed closed. But everyone inside knew one thing for sure. This morning was no longer normal, and whatever happened next would change them forever. Minutes passed, but it felt much longer. The lioness remained outside the door, her eyes never leaving the building. Every sound from inside made her ears twitch. She stood up, walked a short distance, then returned to the same spot near her cub. It was clear she was fighting instinct. Everything inside her told her to grab the cub and run. Yet she stayed. Inside the station, the rescuers watched through a small window. No one spoke loudly. They moved slowly, careful not to make sudden sounds. Fear was still there, but it was changing. The longer the lioness waited without showing aggression, the more everyone began to understand what was happening. This was not a threat. This was a mother who had run out of options. One of the rescuers pointed at the cub's chest. It was barely rising. The cub's sides moved unevenly, as if each breath took effort. There were marks on its body, small scratches, maybe from a fall or a fight. In the wild, a cub this weak would not last the day. The hardest part was knowing that opening the door could change everything. The lioness was calm now, but calm could turn to danger in a second. Still, doing nothing felt worse. The cub lay on the ground, exposed, and the sun was beginning to rise higher. Slowly, the door opened just a little. The sound made the lioness lift her head. Her body stiffened. For one long moment, no one moved. The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. The lioness did not charge. She took one step forward, then stopped. Her eyes moved from the humans to the cub and back again. She let out a low sound, deeper this time, but still controlled. It was not anger. It was warning mixed with worry. The rescuers raised their hands slightly, showing they carried nothing. Their movements were slow and clear. Every step was careful. Their hearts were racing, but they focused on the cub. The goal was simple. Help the cub. Do not scare the mother. When one rescuer knelt near the cub, the lioness moved closer. Close. Enough that her breath could be seen in the cool air. Everyone expected her to strike. She didn't. Instead, she stopped again. That moment changed everything. A line had been crossed, not by humans, but by the lioness herself. She allowed them near her cub, not because she trusted humans, but because she trusted hope more than fear. The cub gave a weak sound as gentle hands touched its body. The lioness watched every movement, tense but still. Time felt slow and sharp. One wrong move could end it all, but nothing happened. The cub was lifted carefully, and the lioness let it happen. For the first time, the rescuers truly understood. This was not just a rescue. It was a shared moment between two worlds that rarely meet and almost never trust each other. The officer's heart raced as he carefully approached the trapped panther, keeping his movements slow and calm. He could see the metal snare biting into the mother's leg. Blood had already started to stain the leaves beneath her. The cub sat a few feet away, whining softly, refusing to leave her side. He crouched low, trying not to make any sudden gestures. Wild animals can sense fear and hesitation, but they can also sense intent. The mother's breathing was shallow but steady. She was alive, and that was what mattered most. He knew he had to wait for help, but he also knew she might not last long. While keeping an eye on both the cub and the mother, the officer pulled out his radio again. He described the situation in detail: the trap, the mother's condition, the cub's behavior, and the urgency. Wildlife rescue teams were on their way, but he calculated that it would take at least 20 minutes for them to arrive. The cub suddenly crept closer to the injured mother, sniffing at her and nuzzling her head. Its cries were soft but filled with a desperate urgency. The officer's chest tightened. He realized that the cub wasn't just frightened, it was pleading. It had followed him into the forest for this very reason. The cub's instinct had led him to the injured mother, trusting him to help. Minutes passed slowly, each one stretching longer than the last. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the usual sounds of birds and insects fading away as if waiting for the outcome. The officer remained low, murmuring soothing words, gently reassuring the cub. He knew any sudden movement might cause panic or aggression from the mother. Finally, the sound of vehicles approaching through the distant trees broke the tense silence. The wildlife rescue team arrived, and the officer guided them carefully through the undergrowth, pointing to the exact location. The cub stayed close, eyes wide and focused on the team, as if urging them to hurry. The rescuers moved quickly, bringing the necessary tools to free the mother. One of them began to calm the animal from a safe distance, while another carefully worked to release the trap. The officer kept the cub close, shielding it from any sudden movement, watching as the mother slowly realized help had come. It was delicate work. The metal snare had cut deep, and any wrong move could cause serious pain or panic. The mother growled softly, warning the team to be careful, but she did not try to escape. She seemed to understand, just as her cub had understood, that humans could now help them. The officer watched silently, aware that the next few moments could change everything. The cub pressed closer to him, seeking comfort, while the mother's breathing began to steady slightly as the rescuers worked. The forest felt alive with tension and hope both at once.